Welcome to the Equity and Inclusion video prepared by the MCTC Center for Teaching and Learning and the Interim Chief Diversity Officer. In this video, we'll provide an overview of the Equity and Inclusion initiatives conducted by the Interim Chief Diversity Officer and the Equity and Inclusion Steering Committee, as well as definitions of keywords, Strategic Inclusion Plan 2016 to 2020, and last but not least, a point of contact. As an overview, MCTC is proud to be one of the most diverse schools in the Minnesota State Colleges and Universities system. Our students, who are diverse in age, ethnic origin, national origin, race, color, sex, sexual orientation, marital status, disability, religious beliefs, creeds, and income, are eager to learn and share with one another in a global campus environment. At this point, I will turn the microphone over to our Interim Chief Diversity Officer, Dr. Jay Williams, who will review definitions as well as the Strategic Inclusion Plan and components therein.
We often treat the words diversity, inclusion, and equity as if they're interchangeable and carry the same meaning. Really, in the applied sense, these three words are not only distinct in their meanings, but part of a trajectory. Diversity is just the presence of differences, different types of people. Inclusion is getting others involved. And equity is setting up systems so what you're doing works for everyone. An analogy I like is if we were going to have a picnic on the T Plaza outside, diversity would be being invited to that picnic. Inclusion would be being able to pull up a chair and eat next to everybody else. And equity would be being part of the planning committee, having a say on the playlist and the songs that were played, maybe on the recipes and the types of food that were served, and really breathing in a bit of your identity to the overall mix. The Strategic Inclusion Plan was the last achievement of the Whitney Stewart Harris era, our previous Chief Diversity Officer. It was created as a response to a Minnesota State system requirement that all schools have a strategic inclusion plan. It's about 20 pages long. We've linked it on the next slide if you'd like to take a closer look, but I'll be going over the main strategies and particularly the work groups which have been established as a way to implement our plan. The Strategic Inclusion Plan was broken into 4 strategies for how we better serve our student body: inclusive spaces and access to information, inclusive services, inclusive curriculum and pedagogy, and inclusive infrastructure. We've established a number of working groups to actually implement the inclusion plan. The first of these working groups is the steering committee, chaired by our Chief Human Resources Officer, Diana Cusick. They'll be monitoring workforce diversity, taking a look at our institutional affirmative action plan, aligning the work of the other groups with our mission, vision, and values, and measuring the success and impact of the work the other groups are doing. Another working group is inclusive curriculum, led by philosophy faculty Ruth Ann Crapo. This group will be matching the catalog, assessing our course catalog to the needs of our students, looking at which courses transfer, and how we can design a better overall group of courses to support our students' academic needs and interests. Inclusive pedagogy is the working group being led by philosophy faculty Lisa Bergren. They'll be focusing on what happens in the classroom. Is our instruction focusing on our students' needs and what's relevant and how they're best likely to learn? Or is our instruction really based on how we were trained? Finally, institutional cultural competency and professional development will be led by Rebecca March, Information Science, and Anna Mazig, our Student Complaint Officer, who's also Esquire. They'll be building the capacity and the structure so that we can train all of our staff and as many faculty as possible in cultural competency and support awareness and development around many issues particular to supporting our unique and richly diverse campus population. Our fifth working group is Inclusive Services and Accessibility, headed up by Caden Riley, the director of the Accessibility Resource Center. Our Dean of Enrollment, Matt Crawford, is also making a large contribution as we look at our services being delivered in a way that really works and resonates with our students, helps to make them feel valued and welcomed, and are we making sure that all aspects of our teaching, facilities, even events are accessible to all. Universal design is kind of the theoretical guideline for this group. Our sixth working group actually grew out of inclusive services, and that's culturally relevant advising and services. This group is helping to make up for a hole in the scholarly body of work. There's tons of work on culturally relevant pedagogy and just a few articles on culturally relevant advising, but we know advising is one of the most crucial areas in terms of retention. Even a student's first impression of their advisor impacts their likelihood to persist and graduate. Our seventh working group is Inclusive Facilities and Community Partnerships, led by Rosa Shannon, the Multicultural Advisor and formerly the Director of the Multicultural Center. Amongst this group's tasks are taking a look at who our community partnerships involve, who do we need to be more present on campus, which of our partners can we house on campus, how do we use our space, do we have proper wayfinding. The Multicultural Center will be recreated under a new name, and also numerous community advisory boards, some of them rooted in ethnic communities, some of them rooted in orientation or other concerns, are being formed to launch this February and March. And finally, our eighth working group, the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration, is led up by Dean Yvette Trotman from the Health Sciences and Al Brown, the current AME, African American Education Empowerment Program coordinator. We've had a long tradition of events honoring Dr. King here at MCTC, and this year our theme is We Are All MLK, looking at how many of us on our campus, through leadership, action, and service, have answered King's call. Part of the duty of the Chief Diversity Officer is to speak truth to power, overlooked experiential truth that so often goes unconsidered. That being said, these messages can be uncomfortable. Sometimes an institutional response is required by an event, a tragedy, a national current event, or a local happening that people have varied stances and responses to, often emotionally charged. To make sure that these statements and the events we create to support our community around them are sufficiently inclusive, we're putting together a response team. The response team will be varied in terms of political affiliation, in terms of ethnic diversity, in terms of the role on campus that the participants play. And we're doing this to make as inclusive as possible statements and events in support of you, the MCTC community. Our inclusion subject experts are putting together hundreds of resources for you. Most of them are focused on how we serve our students. Culturally relevant pedagogy, cultural competence, trigger warnings, privileged forms of speech, working with members of particular ethnic groups, the issues of undocumented students, the issues of refugees. These are just a few examples of the sets of articles, videos, and thought pieces that our community members are compiling for you. You can find them on the Equity and Inclusion SharePoint site, which is under Services, not Committees. And you'll also find the minutes to almost every working group that's convened for the Equity and Inclusion Committee. Our Strategic Action Plan, fiscal year 17 through 20, has been a leader in inclusion and equity as strategy number 2. It's at the top of our institutional priorities. To be that leader, we need to create an infrastructure to support inclusion, diversity, and equity work, training and cultural competency. We need to value what our students bring to the classroom, respect the contributions they make to our community, and leverage that respect in how we deliver service and instruction. It's a competitive edge to be able to service students who are increasingly representative in the shifting demographic of Minnesota students who are so often underserved and overlooked. We need to use data to analyze our progress, look at course success rates and opportunity gaps, and understand our students' needs holistically, and be holistic in our design of evaluative measures. Both qualitative and quantitative data are necessary. Each alone leaves only part of the picture painted. And we must commit to publicly reporting on our progress around the issues of inclusion. It's difficult to pick just one resource to leave you with to recommend, but considering Michelle Venegas, an ESOL teacher from Hamlin, she trains ESOL teachers, is becoming increasingly involved in our equity work here at MCTC. I thought I'd leave you with her TED Talk, which is really a call to the table. She highlights the need for each of us to work on our cultural competency and self-awareness, and the benefits it brings not only to those we serve, but to ourselves.
Thank you for watching. This video was prepared by the MCTC Center for Teaching and Learning.